Welcome back to the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show. Happy you're with us today. Farm Defense, Holly.
Farm and garden in the ultimate comfort. Farmer's Defense has a lightweight, durable sleeves made to protect you against the elements while farming. Farmer's sleeves offer unparalleled protection of arms and skin for any farmer, gardener, or outdoor worker. Say goodbye to irritated skins and sunburns in the garden. Their sleeves are cooling, and they offer comfort and protection against the elements outdoors. It's an alternative to thick clothing. Farmer's Defense is made of wicking material with a UBF protection factor 50 plus to protect your arms from allergens and scratches. To find all their great products, you can visit farmersdefense.com.
We got ours. So, spring soil prep, Holly. Some people who are new to gardening may not know exactly when or what or how to prepare their soil for spring, and they may make the mistakes because they just don't know any better. So we're going to go over some of these tips in which you can better your garden by following them.
Yeah, so I think the first one is not to start too early, in the sense that if it's muddy and you're like, well, normally around this time is when I start my garden, right, so I'm just going to go at it.
This is not a farm. You don't have 5,000 acres to get in the ground. You don't have to mud it in.
Right. And I feel like we've had even muddier springs than, I don't know, normal 5 years ago. And sometimes you just have to wait. And I know that's frustrating. You're like, I want to get out there. Then find some other yard duty to do.
Grow in containers.
What
is the reason why we don't want to mud it in? What happens if we try to mud it in?
So first of all, you're really disturbing a lot of the ecosystem of the soil when you are trying to mud it in. And second of all, a lot of those seeds that you plant are going to rot anyway. Yeah, it could be too cold and the seeds are not going to germinate. So you want to, with the proper time for soil disturbance, if you are going to use a mantis tiller and till the soil or disturb the soil, is when you can take the soil and put it in your hand, create a ball of soil and touch it with a finger, your other hand, and it'll break apart. It'll break apart there's a little amount of moisture in there. It's not too dry. It's not too wet. It breaks apart. It's very pliable in your hand. That's the time in which you are okay to work the soil. Now, you might want to do that in several areas of your garden, as you might have different densities of soil in your garden, as we do. And in the big ag industry, there are certain areas of a field that is much more workable than other areas, low-lying versus high areas. And that's why in the spring, you'll see a field partially tilled and big areas left alone because the tractor and the implement cannot make it through there, and they're just going to cause more problems than benefit by tilling the soil up. So keep that in mind. Don't be eager. Be smart about what you're going to do with your soil so your garden can produce. Because if you do work the soil, Holly, when it's wet, you're going to create clods and you're going to have big, giant bricks of dirt that you can't break apart, and stuff doesn't grow too well in big bricks of dirt. I would say not. So then you also want to add organic matter or compost. A lot of times, especially if maybe you have clay soil or sandy soil, this is beneficial for that. If you just want to feed your soil in an organic way, that's a good thing to do. If you're not sure how much or what or whatever you're supposed to add, you can get a soil test, and you can get a soil test from Soil Savvy, and they have a complete breakdown of what's going on in your soil.
And they will tell you recommendations on how to fix this or fix that. They have multiple points of analyzation at soilsavvy.com, and you can get all kinds of NPK and calcium, magnesium, sulfate, zinc, all these different types of elements, the pH level, to allow you to know where you're at, because you can't just look at your garden and go, hey, that soil is this pH and I'm this low on nitrogen, I'm this high on potassium. Now, if you're growing, there are certain telltale signs that a plant will display that indicates there's something wrong. But yeah, if a plant is yellowing, there is a lack of nitrogen in the soil, but that doesn't tell you that you're 3% low or 10% low. So a soil test is a smart investment in order to know exactly what you need to do in order to correct the problem in which you're facing in your soil. Because if you're just guessing, you're guessing wrong and buying more of something or not buying enough of the other thing and actually damaging more of the soil and taking longer to fix it once you do get a soil test. So that's soilsavvy.com is where you can get that soil test at.
Yeah, lots of good soil tips there. Another one is to leave the roots. So if you have...
What do you mean, leave the roots?
Leave the roots.
We're not talking about weeds. We're talking about...
We're talking about, say you didn't pull your tomato plants out last fall or whatever, just leave them in there. You can even just knock them down. They're just going to add organic matter to your soil.
Corn stalks.
Yeah, corn stalks, etc. Whatever you got. Unless the plant was diseased... diseased.
I'm thinking powdery mildew on squashes or pumpkins.
Yeah, something like that, or even just like a blight situation. You want to, or that one rusty bean rust. Yeah, so unless the plant was diseased, you can just go ahead and knock it down. It'll break down pretty quickly, and then that will just feed your soil a bit more.
And it will also open up cavities in the soil for moisture to penetrate down and get more water into that upper layer of the soil.
And the worms will like it.
Yeah, the worms will help break down that as well based on, how many worms you have and that organic matter. And, that's the same type of concept that in agriculture, they use implements that have long teeth in order to cut deep into the fields to open up pockets to let spring rainwater to get in to raise that water table to get that soil moist and allow it to hold and wick back up as the summer months, the heat kicks in. So leave the roots. Now, spreading manure. If you have the availability, there's certain animal byproducts in which you can use right off the animal. You don't have to wait for it to age. We've talked about this on the program a number of times. Horse manure, cow manure, pig manure, those type of things have to be aged. There's a number of other ones that have to be aged. But also, knowing the source, Holly, can save your garden. Just save your garden.
Right. So as things evolve here in our world, a lot of farmers, etc., use aggressive herbicide.
I don't think it's their fault.
It's not their fault. No, it's not their fault. It's like a broadleaf herbicide.
Yes.
And what does a broadleaf herbicide do?
It kills everything except for grasses. Your thistles, your lamb's quarter, your dandelions, anything, your bordocks, anything that's not a grass, it is designed to absorb into the plant and kill it. So the field or the pasture is pure grass, which is ideal fodder or feed for cows and horses.
Right. So your neighbor or your neighbor's neighbor, Jimmy John down the road is like, hey, I got this aged horse manure, and I know it's free. I know you're a gardener, and it's really great for gardening. All my gardener friends just have enjoyed it, blah blah blah, or whatever. But maybe Farmer Jimmy John switched to one of these aggressive herbicides,
not
knowing because that's not his concern.
Right, because what he was using before wasn't working because in some levels the weeds became super weeds and became resistant to the chemicals in which was being applied, so they have to up it to a more powerful weed.
Right.
A weed spray,
yeah. So then now it's one of the brands or whatever is called Grazon.
Okay.
Grazon. But what happens is that it's so persistent that the horse will digest it. The horse will have their waste. That waste will age. How long do you...
6 months.
6 months. For 6 months. And then you apply it to your plants, and then it kills your plants. Now, it doesn't kill all of them. It's usually like the broadleafish
peppers,
plants.
Tomatoes, eggplants, beans, potatoes, those type of things.
Yeah. The ones that, you want.
The ones that
you probably grow your garden for the most.
Yeah.
And then they'll be stunted and funny. So if you do accept horse manure from somebody
or cow,
you want to find out what are they spraying their pasture with. And if they don't know, they're not sure, you can always, if they're like, I use this brand or whatever, do your research. A lot of times you email the company, you can find out what's going on, whatever. So just be cautious, be careful. We are entering, or we have been, in a very chemical laden world, and don't blame the farmer. They're just doing what they need to do to feed their animals.
And most times they don't have a choice. They're in a situation where the chemical companies have said, here, use our product. We'll basically give it to you, but you have to agree in order to use it in all these agreements and contracts. And whenever, and some of these chemicals are expensive, and or it's the only thing that works for what they have to need it for. They have to do a certain job, and that's the only thing that they are, because organic is not an option for them.
Right. And all of us have jobs, and some of us have to just do our jobs. And
you're late. Well, I got here as soon as I wanted to.
You got to stop for your iced coffee on your way to work.
Well, if you don't have the option or choose not to do manure, you can save the leaves in the fall. You might still have leaves on the ground if you are a fortunate procrastinator and didn't clean the leaves up. You may still have a lot available for you to use as a mulch, whether you grind it up through a leaf mulch or vacuum it up or mulch it up through the lawnmower in a bagger, and you can utilize that as a mulch, and it will feed the soil. Now it'll break down. It'll break down within 2 months and feed the soil and dissipate, and it'll go in the soil, but it's a great alternative to other options and a safe one because it is a plant based on your own property that you are using for the benefit of your garden. There you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, soon, Holly, it's kind of warming up in some parts of the country, and soon it'll be warm at many places, and we want to enjoy your yard without sharing it with those beetles and grubs.
Yeah, with spring just around the corner, it's time to start thinking about controlling the beetles, grubs. There's, don't forget the Japanese beetles. They're really not that far away.
Grub Gone can be applied directly to the turf or garden around ornamentals to control grubs and lessen the impact those beetles have on your yard this summer. Easy to use, apply with a commercial spreader, or irrigate it right into the soil. Specifically created to target grubs and beetle invaders without harming the beneficial insects such as bees, butterflies, and ladybugs.
Right, and to be honest, it's the only non-chemical that works. You can find out more at phyllumbioproducts.com. That's PHYLLOM bioproducts.com. phyllumbioproducts.com. For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.